Welcome to the Draft Geeks podcast. Today we are doing our top 12 defensive backs, safeties and corners included. So it's going to be a little bit of a mix and match between those two positions. But we are officially 1 week away from the 2025 NFL draft. Got a couple more positions to do, interior defensive line, after this episode. So make sure you stay tuned. But without further ado, the Draft Geeks podcast starts right now.
Welcome into another episode of the Draft Geeks podcast. I'm Max Shostak over at the Draft Geek, here alongside Jace Campbell over at Pat's Drive, coming to you guys for take 3 of trying to record this episode for various reasons. But we're really excited to bring you our DB episode. We're combining our corner and safety rankings into our top 12s. It was a difficult process for me personally, but I'm really excited to bring it to you guys, show you guys some of the variety in both of these position groups. And as Jace mentioned, if you're on YouTube, we will be in the same clothes for the next episode because we're doubling up right after this for interior defensive line. So if you're listening to this and that hasn't come out yet, stay tuned, turn on all those notifications, make sure you subscribe. Without further ado, though, Jace, how you doing?
Hey, you're not supposed to tell people we're going back to back. We're just going to say we're staying in the same clothes, sitting in here for the next 7 days preparing. Like, that's
right. They're not supposed to know.
No, but yeah, we were 20 minutes into recording this episode, the start of it, and got through, a player, and we're on the second one. And I realized that when I sent over my list to Max to make the graphics, I left off my number 4 player somehow because it wasn't matching up as I'm talking about it. I'm like, well, it says he's right here, but on my screen it's not. And so we had to redo the graphics. We had a good laugh about it, but we're here. This is a deep class, lots of talent here, and this is a position of need everywhere because of how prominent offenses are throwing the ball. Elite wide receivers on the outside, quarterbacks are all looking for guys that can match up. So I'm excited to get into this one and talk about some of these dudes.
We'll do honorable mentions real quick. I'm going to bring Dorian Strong to the table from Virginia Tech. He's a cornerback that in our first edition of recording this episode, you called boring. And I think, that's kind of the right sentiment, right? He's able to stay in the hip pocket of receivers for the most part. He's a bigger player, so he can stay stride for stride with guys. I had some questions about his balance, but I think he's overall an adequate man corner, an adequate zone corner. I don't know if he excels in either spot, but I think he can be a steady player at the back of the corner room. He's a 23-year-old, so a little bit of an older prospect, but a converted receiver with a lot of experience. I do like his game. He is my cornerback number 11, so just outside of my top 10, but somebody I wanted to make sure we bring to the table.
Yeah, I definitely like the background of offensive guy, and I think most of these guys in this day and age are going to have a little bit of offensive background.
Anybody else in this class that has that kind of background?
No, I don't think so. No one prominent.
Nah, nobody important. So, nobody good.
Yeah, if there's someone that we stumble upon, maybe we'll bring it up. But I like how he attacks the ball in the air. You can tell that he's been used to going up and getting the ball. I think my concerns with him, the lack of speed for the position. I think he's a long strider, which is good, but I think he struggles to get in and out of his breaks when guys are running, comebacks, things like that, deep down the field. And then I think he's a little bit inconsistent with some of his hand placement. I don't think he's comfortable in press, which I value a lot in a corner. Obviously, there's going to be guys that we're going to talk about up at the top of this list that are very good in zone, but they're elite in it, and there's a role for those guys. But when you can find a press man corner, especially a guy that's Dorian Strong size, who's 6'1", and 185 pounds, I would like to see him just a little bit more comfortable in press and being able to maybe play in a scheme like that. I'm not saying he can't. I just think that I'd be a little bit worried to consistently put him out there and say, hey, you got to guard these guys. And it's probably going to be a bunch of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3s. He's not getting the number 1 matchups every week in the NFL, where he's going to get drafted and what I think his skill set is. But still, it would worry me with just some of those, tendencies, a little bit slow feet, not super twitchy, but definitely a guy worth talking about. Guy for me on the defensive side of the ball, Zy Alexander out of LSU. Okay. I love this guy because I just said, I love guys that can play press man. I think that he's shown that he can do that at a high level. 13 career interceptions for Zy Alexander. He started in the FCS, so small school guy, went up to LSU. He's long, he's lengthy, he's really good at turning and running. He tracks the football really well in the air. He gets the ball out at the catch point, whether it's through the receiver's hands or through their back. He can play through contact. He covers ground. He's another long strider. And he had, this is another thing I love, 0 penalties this year. 0 penalties. And, it sounds like, oh, that's not like, that shouldn't be too hard, right? Just don't grab. Well, or even like guys that get 1 or 2, he had no penalties all year, super sticky in coverage, and he had 13 career interceptions, so taking the ball away. The other thing I like for corners, it's not the biggest need to be an elite tackler, but he has a 3.2% missed tackle rate. So he's very good at coming up, making plays on the outside. A lot of the times they'll push crack the safeties or the backers with the receivers, and they leave the corners to tackle these running backs. And you have to rely on them to do that. And I think he's a very good tackler, especially with this size. So a couple of the limitations I have, I think he needs a little bit more consistent footwork because he's a long strider. It's the same thing as Dorian Strong, a little bit hard sinking his hips in and out of breaks. And then his long speed is probably a tad worse than what Dorian Strong's is. So a little bit of worries there, but experienced, long corner, plays press coverage, and takes the ball away. Sounds like a recipe for success for me.
Alexander's somebody that I didn't get to in these watches, but somebody that I want to get to. One more guy that I was going to bring to the table, somebody that I told you to watch, and you ended up being higher on him than me by just 1 spot, and it's Robert Longerbeam, the cornerback out of Rutgers. The name kind of sounds like a Harry Potter side character, but no, it's a Rutgers cornerback. Longerbeam is 175 pounds. Yeah. So that's the glaring issue that you have to preface everything I'm about to say with. Outside of that, though, I think ironically, he's an incredibly physical player, and he pushes guys around that are just straight up bigger than him. He's an absolute pest. He's a press man corner. I want to see him improve diagnosing the run game. By that, I mean knowing when, it's time to click out of coverage and go attack the ball carrier. But I think he does have fluid hips, and he's able to stick with his receiver in man. He absolutely has to put on weight. There's no way around that. If he remains at 175, I don't think he'll be a successful NFL player, but he's a diamond in the rough prospect for me because of his physical profile and because I do think he's got the speed to stay with receivers. And I just really like the guys who can, give those bigger players some shit off the line. And will just completely get under their skin from the first snap of the football game. Longerbeam's that guy. And whether you're getting him late round 3 or early on day 3, which I think is more likely, I think he's going to do everything he can to make the roster and will definitely not make friends in rookie minicamp. But I think the coaching staffs will like him.
Yeah, no, 4.39 long speed. He had an 11.2 broad jump. I think that the straight line speed and the ability for him to sink in his hips and redirect with routes, receivers is there. He does good in zone coverage. He processes route combinations that I thought in zone. So, I mean, I don't want to say he's a my guy because you turned me on to him, but I agree with you. I think that he has the speed. He has the change of directions to be a sticky corner in coverage. He's going to be able to stick with a lot of receivers. And him being physical in the run game is a huge plus too. Him, playing bigger than his size, coming up, being willing to tackle, and playing bigger than his 5'11" frame is something that you want to look at because there's a lot of guys that are 6'2", 6'3", that aren't willing to tackle, and he's 3 inches shorter than them, and he is willing to tackle, and he's dang good at it. So yeah, I like Longerbeam. I agree with you. I'd probably put a mid 3rd round grade on him, maybe a late one. Someone will take a chance on him and give him an opportunity to make a roster. And the other thing, sorry, I meant to say this. I love he's a special teams guy too. Big special teams guy. And when you're talking about a 3rd, 4th round corner, you're talking about, hey, punt coverage, gunner control, stuff like that. What can they do? He can bring you some of that. He's played that for a long time. So it's kind of the same as the linebacker episode, right? We talked about, hey, a lot of these guys are going to be 5th, 6th round picks, but they're going to have a role on 2 or 3 special teams. That's going to be some of these honorable mention guys, and maybe even some of these guys early in their career, where it's going to be like, hey, you're a 3rd round guy. Yeah, maybe you're the 4th corner on the field in a dime package, but you're going to be running down on punt coverage, and you're going to have a role on special teams. And that's how they get on the field early in their career. And that's where I see Longerbeam being there. So last one I wanted to shout out is Andrew Mukuba from Texas. I thought this guy was a fun safety. He's a 4.45 yard or 40-yard dash guy. He's had 5 interceptions this year. I think he triggers great downhill. He's decisive and explosive when closing on the football. He plays the ball and not the receiver, which is big, right? Obviously, playing the receiver is key if the ball's going to him, but he can undercut the ball. He can take it out of the air. That's to speak for his 5 interceptions this year. He tracks the quarterback's eyes great, whether he's in zone or he's in the post, and he's playing underneath or over the top. Tracks his eyes well, gets to the ball. I think he's a smart player. He's a true safety. There's a couple of these guys like, is he going to be a nickel? He's probably going to stay at the safety spot. I think you can trust him to fly down if he's in cover 4 or cover 2, run the alleys, make a play. The only questions I have is his build's a little bit thin, 5'11" and a quarter, 186 pounds. It's not built like a traditional safety, which is a little bit of a concern for me. I don't think he's reliable in man-to-man. That's why I say he's probably a true safety, is because I'm not moving him to nickel, even though he has the frame to it. I'm not going to say, hey, let's go do there, because I don't think he's the best in man coverage. And then tackling, although he flies down and he's willing to throw his body in there, he dives at ankles often and he misses a lot of tackles. So if he could – you can't control his strength. If he could get a little bit more mass on him and maybe feel a little more comfortable diving at guys, thighs or whatever, instead of his ankles, and be a more consistent tackler, might have him a little bit higher than what I do at D. I think I have him. He's at my he's not ahead of Billy Bowman or any of those guys at safety. He's my safety 6. But I thought he was a fun watch, flying downhill, making plays on the ball. Just a little bit limitations in the size for NFL safety were my concerns.
He's my safety 5, and all 4 of my other safeties ahead of him are in my top 12 DB. So I thought pretty highly of Mukuba. He was, after his sophomore year at Clemson, he was a very highly touted prospect, and then he kind of had a down junior year, hopped in the transfer portal, brought his prospect status back up again at Texas, and took them, helped them go to the semifinals with the 5 interceptions you mentioned, playing alongside another guy that we'll get to a little later in Jahdae Barron. I think Mukuba is a fun safety prospect. He's not exactly my type. I like the guys that can help you get a little bit more positionless, and I think he's just going to stick back there at safety, but there's beauty to that. I just think, like you mentioned, got to clean up the tackling, because if you're going to stick back at safety, you got to become a reliable option. But if you have that ball hawk trait, you're going to get yourself drafted. And like one other guy that we'll get to later, he kind of makes up for his okay athletic profile with that ball hawk ability. So Mukuba is somebody that just missed the list for me. He was my DB number 16, and somebody that I'm glad you brought to the table.
For sure. Let's jump right into our top 12. Again, if you guys are on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you want to see the graphics, YouTube is an option for you. If not, just follow along. We'll make sure to try to announce it. Do you want to read your we have them all up. Do you want to go 12 through 6 or?
Let's see. We'll plan the show as we go. Let's you know what? Let's do 12 through 9 first, because I see that we have the same 9. And then we can kind of mix and match. So I'll go first. Number 12, I had Jacob Parrish, the cornerback out of Kansas State. We'll make sure to give you guys the positions, because we are combining corner and safety. And I'm kind of saying that out loud for myself to remember to do that. Number 11, Kevin Winston Jr., the safety out of Penn State. Number 10, Savon Ravel, the corner out of East Carolina. And number 9, Darian Porter, the corner out of Iowa State, another converted wide receiver. So that's not exactly the guy we were alluding to earlier, though.
Yes, it was. Let's start with Jacob Parrish, and then I'll read my 12, because I have Jacob Parrish as 13. So before, when I read the wrong list to you, he was in this top 12, and then we got
he used to be 12. You did him dirty.
For a slight 20 minutes, he was 12 for me because of a mistake. But yeah, start us off with Jacob Parrish, because we're going to see him similarly. We had him in the same spot.
Yeah.
Just
we used to have him in the same spot. Yeah. Well, so Jace is a huge Jacob Parrish hater, because he made me remake an entire graphic just to get Jacob Parrish off of it.
That was it.
So I think Jacob Parrish, he may not be the biggest guy at the corner position. I actually think he's going to slide inside to perhaps a nickel role. He's got shorter arms. He's slightly smaller. He played a lot of off man on the outside for Kansas State. But I think because of his blitz ability, he's going to make for a perfect inside corner, slot corner, nickel corner, wherever you want to play him. I think he's versatile in that regard. He's a really aggressive player in pursuit of the ball carrier, which is something that you have to have if you're going to be moved closer to the football, which is something that he projects to do at the next level. He's got quick click and close ability to read and react, to immediately diagnose when the ball's been released or handed off. He's going to pursue the ball carrier, like I mentioned. There's a lot of off coverage. He's a smaller corner, shorter arms. But, he's an experienced blitzer from the slot. And as I mentioned, that's a trait you got to have if I'm going to project you to move inside. And the way he glides around the field was enough to put him in my top 12. He's an exciting player. I think somebody that I'll probably label as a diamond in the rough when I get around to that over on my Instagram. Parrish is a fun prospect. There's a lot of corners that are more easy to project for big time roles. And when I say that, I mean on the outside, but there is a need for a Jacob Parrish in pretty much every single defense. Think Mike Hilton with Lou Anarumo and the Bengals in years past.
Yeah, the first thing I put in it's not even my cons list, but the kind of his weaknesses is I put slot corner ? Because you see him play a lot of outside corner at Kansas State, but I agree with you. I think he's going to move inside. 4.35 speed. He was a state champion sprinter in Kansas in high school, and I think you see that on his film. There's some guys we've talked about, go back to the receiver episode. Matthew Golden, I didn't see 4.29 speed on his film. You see 4.35 speed for Jacob Parrish. I think he has really quick feet. He's able to stay with the receiver at the line of scrimmage. You said it, his start and stop ability to get in and out of breaks is what you're drafting him for. That's what you want. Change the direction. I thought that the Colorado film against Travis Hunter, they kind of paired him up exclusively with him. Travis Hunter got, the best of him at times, but I thought Jacob Parrish played him really well. And you see some of those movement skills in that game going up against another elite athlete. I think he plays bigger wide receivers well, even though he's smaller. Where he lacks is playing through contact, playing through the back because his arms are small. He can't get the ball out. And that's where I'd like to see a little bit more production out of him is playing through the hands. But when he gets on the back of receivers, if they're bigger and have those longer arms, he can't really affect them making the catch if it's an elite wide receiver. And I think he needs to get his eyes back to the quarterback just a little bit quicker than he actually does. He's great at running with the guys. He's great at staying with them. But if he can combine getting his hands through contact and getting his eyes back on the quarterback and maybe getting his eyes on the ball a little bit more consistently, he might have a couple more interceptions than he did and turn into kind of a ball hawking slot corner. So yeah, we're just off on him. He was cornerback 9 for me, or sorry, he's cornerback. Let me look at that. Cornerback 10 for me. And so it's not far off.
Corner 8 for me.
There you go. Yeah. So he's not far off there. And I mean, the difference is because you have 4 safeties in this top 12, I have 3, and so a little bit higher on him. But my number 12 is Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. And I believe you have him at 13. Is that how it is? Or is he?
I have him at 14.
Okay. So, I mean, it's similar. Xavier Watts is at 11 out of Notre Dame. So back-to-back Notre Dame guys. Azareye'h Thomas from Florida State at 10, and then Darren Porter at 9. A little bit, maybe a little bit. But let's start with Benjamin Morrison. Yeah, because he would be an honorable mention for you and stuff. 6 foot and a quarter, 193. He doesn't have any testing numbers. He had that injury to his hip, which was season ending. 6 interceptions and 10 PBUs as a freshman. 3 interceptions and 13 PBUs in 2023. I think this is a calm cornerback. He doesn't panic. He can play both man or zone. Really active hands when he is playing press man. Fluid movements. He plays on the balls of his feet. He doesn't often get back on his heels, and he's not guessing a lot. I think that he plays with his eyes and hands through the wide receiver to the quarterback, whether he's in man or zone. He looks through the receiver to the quarterback to see where the ball is and, match routes, things like that. High IQ guy, makes plays at the catch point. That's, indicated by his interceptions and PBU numbers. I think he needs to add more weight a little bit for his frame. He can probably get up to 198, 200 maybe, still keep some of those movement skills. Play strength, especially in the run, is what's lacking a little bit. Can get off balance versus bigger receivers. They tend to body him at the catch point, even though he can play through their hands. He can get boxed out. Same with Jacob Parrish. 6 penalties in 2023 was a bit of a concern. I think he gets calm, but he does get grabby at times. I was really interested to see what his 40 was going to be because I think he gets grabby because he's a little bit worried about his long speed and things like that. And then the biggest concern is 2 hip surgeries over the last 4 years. Like that's a big concern there. And I think that the hip is a little bit concerning because you do not want to get stiff in the hips as a corner. You have to be able to flip. You have to be able to run. So originally I had Parrish ahead of him. But I think that I went back and watched some of the 2023 film and was like, hey, this guy's still really good. He plays the ball very well in the air, can get his hands on him. It's just if he can figure out those hip things and doesn't have any more setbacks, then I think he could, live up to that 2023 hype.
I think there's also a shoulder injury that's mixed in there.
Yeah.
It's a long injury history, and especially with the hip on corners. We've talked about it on previous episode, but it's just not a great part of the body to have injured as a corner. Hips are kind of vital. For me on Morrison, he's somebody that I thought I was going to like a lot more because I'm like, I was really high on him going into the season and everybody seems to be low on him. Is it just because of the injury? And then you're kind of forced to rewatch some stuff. And I came away really unimpressed with his physical profile. I think, like you mentioned, he's a calm cornerback. I think he paces with receivers well and he plays well in coverage. But I think he becomes a different player when it's time to put hands on. I think if he's initiating contact as a press man corner, fine. But if a receiver's coming out to block him in the run game, I think he gets bullied in that aspect. I think if you're throwing up a jump ball to him, I don't think he's always ready to survive. And I think when he's going in to make a tackle, he's not always the most successful. So those are 3 red flags for me. And then you add the medical profile onto somebody who I already have physical questions about. And it's tough for me to get behind a prospect like that. But outside of the non-great physical profile, I think, like I mentioned, he paces well. He stays hip for hip. The 14th percentile arm length kind of surprised me because I thought that he gets his arms and hands to the football well. But I think that's just because he has good accuracy with his hands. But I wonder if, again, the arm length is going to be something that gets taken advantage of at the next level because of the lack of a physical profile. So for those wondering why Morrison is dropping, I don't think it's anything to do with his coverage skills. I think he's a decent cover corner, but the physical profile is not something you can gloss over. It's not just an injury discount here that drops him out of my top 12. The physical profile is a big deal for me. I need my corners to be able to step up and make a tackle, and I don't like corners that I watch get boxed out on tape. That's not necessarily saying give me the bigger corner every day because those guys can get burnt because they're not as elusive. But it's hard to find corners in the late rounds that are going to excel. And if you are, I would like them to be able to stand up physically.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The physical limitations, size-wise and length-wise, are probably why he's another reason why he's down here for me. I mean, this was a guy that at one point I believe was talked about as a first-round guy. Before the injury, obviously, he was talked about pretty highly. So a lot's fallen down, the frame and things like that. So, but let's go to Kevin Winston. So I have him as my safety 4. So we have him in the same spot as safety, and then he's my DB 14. So he's just right outside, right behind Jacob Parrish. So we're close on him. You have him at DB 11. So talk to me about Kevin Winston.
Yes, so Kevin Winston's a little bit of a gamble, and it sounds a little bit hypocritical after I just talked about knocking somebody for their injuries. Kevin Winston played 2 games this year and then tore his ACL. And I think it was during the second game. He only had 14 snaps in that game against Bowling Green. So he is not completely responsible for the Harold Fannin show that took place in Happy Valley on that day. But when you look at the 2023 stuff and the 2024 stuff, I was kind of reminded of the player that Kevin Winston Jr. is. He's somebody that's going to fly around downhill. I think he's a free-flowing mover, a good athlete. He's got a good size and physical profile that I really like. I think his movement skills make him able to be a blitzer, drop in coverage, play the middle of the field, and I think he tackles strong. So Kevin Winston Jr. is a player I'm a fan of at the 11 spot for DBs. I just need to see him come back off of that injury. But I think with the injury discount that you're getting on Kevin Winston, I think he's got steal potential. It's just a matter of can he return to that 2023 form that had him as a highly touted prospect coming into the year.
Yeah, I loved the 2023 film, and I don't want to say I'm a little frustrated, but I feel weird having him outside of my top 10 because I could easily see that still potential. Also,
but when a guy hasn't played in a year, it's hard. I don't blame you.
It's true. Yeah. I mean, but neither has Benjamin Morrison I just talked about, and there's going to be another guy up here we'll talk about. But
right.
he has the build. Unlike Makuba, who was a little bit smaller, you wonder, about his build. This guy's 6'1.5", 215 pounds, and he holds it well. He's stout, he's big, he's what you want in a safety. He closes on the ball carrier just as good as Makuba does, and he's a better tackler. He's violent, he's physical. He might be the best tackler in this class. And I'm not going to say in linebackers too, but like he could compete with some linebackers for how good
tackles like one.
He does.
I wrote that down. Yeah,
he does. He could compete with some of those guys for being a better tackler than them. I think that he plays the wide receiver hands, gets the ball out good, 0 penalties in 3 years. Another guy that's just not penalized. I think he's average man coverage and safety. I wouldn't trust him to do it consistently, but I think he can.
Right.
He was the only safety in the nation with an 85 plus cover and run defense grade in 2023. So, that's kind of misproven that he's, not that good of a cover guy. But I think he's a little limited in some of the man stuff you would ask him to do in the NFL. Over aggressive on play actions. I think he wants to play the run. He's probably more specifically a box safety, because another thing is when he was in the post and stuff, very limited in 2023 and stuff. I feel like he didn't have the range that you would want as a free safety. A little bit questionable redirect skills and change of direction stuff when, quarterbacks can manipulate his eyes. But if you can get this guy down in the box and you can get him close, to the running game and, tight ends and stuff that aren't going to out athlete him, this is exactly who you want. He's not going to miss many tackles. He's going to get those bigger guys on the ground. And he's going to be he's like been raved as a leader too. Tom Allen said he sets high standards and elevates everyone around him. That was Penn State's defensive coordinator. And that was after he tore his ACL. Like he stayed on the sidelines and he had a microphone or an earpiece in every time for, the coaching staff. Like he was still a huge part of that team because he was, the vocal leader of that defense. So everything you want out of the safety, especially, them kind of being with the linebackers, one of the more vocal guys on the defense, having to make calls and stuff. And so, yeah, I think the closer he is to the line of scrimmage, the better he is. And that's where
him and one other safety in this class that we'll talk about. The closer you get them to the football, the more they excel. And the run defense grades, like you mentioned, man, 3 seasons in college football from least recent to most recent, 91.1, 90.6, and 90.7. Those are not easy grades to come by. Kevin Winston Jr. checks that box. It's a big thing that I look for in safeties. And I think you're going to be able to move him around early on in his career until he finds a home. And that's not necessarily a bad thing out of the safety position. That's actually something I look for. I want you to play multiple spots. Think Brian Branch, Jalen Petrie. I will not say the name of the other Notre Dame safety that came out that somehow gets mixed into every single safety comparison, and we're probably going to use it.
No, we're not.
No,
not using it this episode.
I won't. Ready? I'm going to say his name one time. We're not bringing him in again. Kyle Hamilton. There you go. He's not mentioned for the rest of the show. It's like a cuss word, man, when you're talking about safeties, because everybody's like, oh, he's got, and this is as a South Carolina and Ravens fan. So they'll like specifically Nicky Minori. Oh, he's got a little Kyle Hamilton to him. And I'm like, can we not do that? Like, I know they're both really athletic, big safeties, but Kyle Hamilton was my number 1 player in the 2022 class. So
holy crap.
Yeah. So we're not doing the whole Kyle Hamilton thing. I just had to get that off my chest, man. That's a pet peeve when scouting safeties. You can throw Jalen Petrie in there for Kevin Winston Jr., though. I do like that one.
For sure. So I like him. I think he's going to be a very sure tackler, and I agree. He could be a 3rd-round pick, and he could be an instant starter and make
that's a steal in my opinion. Yeah,
it would be a steal. Yeah. I'm trying to look. I mean, we have a couple guys.
We go
probably as I was going to say okay. Let's go Darian Porter. We both have him at 9 because my 10 and 11 are both higher on your board. So we will get to them in the next grouping. Let's go with Darian Porter, the alien out of Iowa State. We've talked about it, and there will be another guy. I know we said there wasn't. There will be another guy that plays receiver too. This guy was legitimately a 3-year player at the receiver position, not like a starter or anything for Iowa State. But he was a receiver on roster at Iowa State for 3 years. 6'2" and 7/8, 195 pounds. When we say an alien, like 4.35, 40-yard dash speed, tested like a freak. I can't believe I just closed out of all of his testing numbers because
your computer's going to crash trying to bring that up. That's how good the numbers
are. They're going to be like, this is extraterrestrial. We cannot bring them. But
extraterrestrial information. This is what his mock draftable looks like, his spider chart for those of you watching. It's a lot of check boxes right there. But yeah, if you don't have it in front of you, Darian Porter's 95th percentile wingspan, 93rd percentile arm length, 93rd percentile 10-yard split, 98th percentile 40-yard dash. And there's a lot of other 90s and 80s up there. But he's 24 years old. Why do you think what's up with the late breakout in your opinion?
Well, so that's what I'll get. That's what I was going to get into. He had the 6.713 cone, in my opinion, is very elite. Also, the change of directions. He allowed 0 touchdowns the last 2 years, 8 PBUs. I just think he's inexperienced at the position. He's older in college football, but he's only played corner. Yeah, he's only played corner for he lacks experience. And I think you saw him get better this year. I think he's a special team Swiss Army knife. That's where he's going to make his money. He blocked 4 punts in the last 4 years for Iowa State. So he's going to make his money early on special teams and find a way, because of his size, because of his length, because of his elite athleticism, to get on the field. You're not drafting this guy to be your corner 1 or 2 right away. You're drafting this guy as a developmental guy that you can get on the field for special teams right away and get in there. His rare blend of size and speed is great. He plays fast too. It's not like he's slow, even though he's a little bit new to the cornerback position. He's not slow. For a DB that's about 6'3", he changes his direction and his pad level and stuff to get in and out of breaks. Elite. You can tell he's ran routes before. He knows how to do that. Good ball skills as a former receiver, which everyone wants to see there. His recovery speed and acceleration is top notch also. But it really comes to, hey, the lack of starting experience, a little bit older prospect. And I don't think he's quite yet physical in the run. That ties into lack of physicality there. Mistimed punches, that comes into lack of experience there too. So a lot of the things that I have the questions about is like, hey, if you get him with an NFL coach in an NFL system after a year or two, and now he's played the position for 4 years and he's been coached by the best coaches in the world, can he be an elite cover guy? And man, and I think he has the traits to be able to. Not saying he will, but I see that's why we both have him at 9, is he has the traits to, and he has the ability to grow into a corner because he just hasn't played the position for long enough.
Timing with punches and timing with tackling are the biggest things. And I think what comes with experience is timing. So I think you're going to get this guy on the field early, special teams. He's going to make an impact right away. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to say this is a completely bold take right now, but I think it's going to start getting more realistic. I wouldn't be surprised if Darian Porter goes in the back half of the first round, because a special teams coordinator is going to pound on a general manager's desk and say, look, our defensive coordinator loves him as a defensive developmental prospect, and this guy is going to be my special teams ace for until he's too good at corner to play special teams. I think that's the type of special teams versatility Darian Porter brings to the table. He's a 24-year-old guy, big, long, outside corner, good long speed, but he's also got pretty good short area quickness for his size, athletic mover. He's got a quick downhill trigger. So we talked about some of those timing lapses. He knows when to go, when to pull the trigger. It's just about, sizing up those tackles. But when he hits you right, it's an amazing tackle. He's got some amazing tackles on film. He's also got some tackles where you're thinking he looks like a receiver, and that's because he is or was one. So there is a late breakout here. He was a special teams guy for a long time when he was a receiver, and you're still going to get that out of him as a corner. And he's still learning how to play the position, but there's a lot of traits to buy into. But it is an unusual prospect because when you have these conversations, usually it's about a 21-year-old. So that's why he's at 9. But some of the flashes are really special with Darian Porter. You're just waiting to see that more. I think he goes in the second round, but I don't rule out a first-round pick.
Yeah, like I look at the Bills who need like an outside man corner, and they could take a chance on him. They could take a chance on him. Depends on who's on the board, right? We obviously have guys a little bit higher than him that if they are there, we would take over him. But I wouldn't be shocked because of the traits alone and stuff that a corner coach and, like you said, special teams coordinator, GM would say, hey, let's take this guy and let's get him in our system. And he could be a steal even at, 30 or wherever he goes, depending on, what he gets drafted at. So totally agree with you there. Let's finish off. So we got a couple of matches here. So finish off your 8 through 6, and then we'll figure out where to go from there.
So my 8 is Zaire Thomas, the corner out of Florida State. My 7 is Xavier Watts, the safety out of Notre Dame. And then at 6, I have Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss.
I have Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky, the corner at 8. Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss at 7, and Nick Emu. You say it better than me.
Eamon Wari.
Eamon Wari. I want to say Eamon Wari. Eamon Wari from South Carolina, the safety at 6. So
Let's
the
do
one
Harrison,
that makes,
I think.
yeah, Harrison. I was going to say because
Yeah.
he's off yours,
Yep.
and he's at 8 for me, and we already had this conversation over
He's
text and
13 for
stuff.
me, so one off. But I mean, I'll say this really quick, and then I'll let you go first because you're higher on Harrison than me. But one of the hardest prospects in this group to place.
I agree with you. I had a hard time settling with him here. He's my cornerback. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's my cornerback 6 for me right now. And I've seen him higher for some guys, and I didn't see it. And that's where I was like, am I missing something? Obviously, the 4.28 40-yard dash was the best at the combine. He had a 39.5-inch vert, 10.9. He has the speed to keep up with most receivers in the NFL. Super quick feet, really twitchy. I think he can play man coverage well. He's in and out of his breaks. He diagnosed routes. The lean frame at 183 was a concern for me. I thought he had very spotty technique in press man coverage. He's super aggressive on double moves, and he's really handsy. So as fast as he is, he generated penalties. He was handsy at the top of routes. He felt like he wasn't comfortable guarding them, even though we knew he could run with them. So I agree with you. And I don't blame you for putting him at 13. I could have seen him falling for me. I ended up not doing it because I think some of the stuff that he struggles at is coachable. The frame one is one he's got to put on mass and stuff, but you can't teach the speed. You can't teach the footwork and things like that. So I would feel like this guy is another one that would be a back half of the first round guy because of the traits and because of the speed that he plays at and that he has. But I agree, the technique was not there. The ability to come up and make a tackle with his lean frame was lacking. Over aggressive on double moves and stuff. Like, I feel like he can be picked on in the NFL very easily. People can scheme for him, kind of like they did with Trayvon Diggs. I know he had a great year one year, and then the next year they're like, okay, well, we're just going to pick on you, and you're going to, so that's kind of where I fell on him. I guess I fell a little bit more in love with the traits that he has, but I can definitely see why he's 13 for you.
I was actually a huge Hairston guy after his sophomore year at Kentucky. I thought he was, a really good developable up and coming player, and actually was kind of surprised that he declared for the draft this year, got the Senior Bowl invite, and performed pretty well over there. But on tape, I see an off man corner. I don't really like him in press. I don't want him up there playing physical with wide receivers because I think he's physical in the pass interference kind of way, not in the helpful in the run and good in press kind of way. So it's the wrong kind of physicality, right? I don't mind if a guy is physical, good in press, and then he might grab you once or twice because that's kind of his game. I do mind if you're not that physical in press, not the greatest in the run, and are still going to grab. That's a big turnoff for me. I think he's got good range. He plays with the speed that he showcased at the combine. And then the 8th percentile weight. I think not only is that a concern statistically, but it shows up on tape. 8.2 missed tackles, 8.2 missed tackle percentage in 2023, 27.3 missed tackle percentage in 2024 is an insane number. And I think when you weigh an 8th percentile weight, what is it, 160 something? I know longer beams like first percentile at 157, so it can't be too far off. I think it's in the mid 180s for Hairston. But that's similar build to like Emmanuel Forbes. And we kind of saw how that went. I'm not saying not good at all. I'm not saying I'm like the biggest Hairston hater because I do think he is but listen, the tackling profile is really poor. I think he's grabby, and I think if he's overdrafted and thrown out on the field right away, I think he could have a quick NFL career.
Would you be more comfortable taking Porter or Harrison? Obviously Porter because he's higher than you, but like as raw as Porter is,
it's a real question because like who am I comfortable putting out there at corner week 1?
Yeah.
I would give you Porter because I think he has a lesser chance to be overmatched just because of his physical traits. But I do think it's a good question because while surface level, obviously it's Porter. I have him at 9 and Hairston at 13. We did talk about it. Porter is a little bit of a project, but even still, I'm not the biggest Hairston guy, and I don't know if I'm going to end up with him over Morrison when it's all said and done. But for now, at least, it's Hairston, and I get to buy myself more time before I post my final rankings because corners usually last.
Yeah, I mean, and we still have 7 days. We will do a top 50 big board, so we'll see if he makes it for either of us. I could easily go back and rewatch a couple more of the games because I only got through 4 games of him, and be like, yeah, I don't see the upside of Darren Porter, and so we'll see where he ends up on our top 50s and then our final rankings once we get to that. But let's move on to Azareye'h Thomas. You have him at 8, I have him at 10. The corner from Florida State, one of the younger positions in this class. So I'll let you take this one away with you being higher on him.
So Azareye'h Thomas is going to be 20 on draft night. That is a big plus for me. We talked about traitsy corners with the 24-year-old Darren Porter. How about a traitsy corner, the 20-year-old with Azareye'h Thomas? You're getting an entire contract of age younger on this guy. He's got 80th percentile arm length, 93rd percentile hand size, 83rd percentile wingspan, and he is 6'1.5". So it's a big corner, and he plays like it as well. His long frame, he will F you up in press man coverage. I think he will get under the skin of wide receivers. I do think at times he can get grabby, but I do think that comes with the territory. He's got a good feel in zone, and I think he's got a good command of reps physically as a man cover corner. He's a big-time helper in the run. I think when the ball is handed off, he turns into a box safety in terms of his ability to get his nose dirty and get involved in running reps. So I liked what he did there. And then I think he can blitz too, which is something that I like to look for out of bigger cornerbacks. Can you use your size to crash downhill at a quarterback and impact the pass with your hands up at the passing lanes? He checks that box, and he's fierce around the football. So I think if he can just mature a little bit, becoming more knowledgeable about how to use his hands properly, like somebody else that we'll talk about in this class, an Ole Miss corner who uses his hands really well. I think Azareye'h Thomas, that should come with age. He's only 20 years old. So he lands at DB number 8 for me here, and he lands at cornerback number 5.
Yeah, he's cornerback 8 for me. I see the vision. Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna get on you for hater.
Yeah,
you
are.
Yeah,
you are.
You saved that. You saved that. So
yeah.
The age thing is super enticing. The frame, 6'1.5", 197 pounds. The frame, the length, tall, long athlete. I think he moves very well for his size. One thing I really love about him, he takes receivers to the sideline. He uses that as a defender. He'll just run them out of bounds if that's where they want to go. Good hands and press. He stuns defenders. I think he's super competitive. He closes on plays in front of him. He has the speed there. I worry about his long speed too. This is another guy that I worry about the long speed. I worry about his feet and change of directions in and out of breaks. For as big as he is, I don't think he moves as well as Darren Porter and gets in and out of breaks as Darren Porter. I do think his best football is ahead of him. So it is a project. It is a projection type guy there, which I can definitely get on board with. I think he also left interception production on the field. There were a ton of plays where this dude could have had 2 or 3, maybe even 4 interceptions more. It's like he just left it on the field. And he's another one that I think when guards pull at him, tight ends get out there on stock blocks and stuff, he's not existent in the run game. For his size, he should be better than what he is. The other thing I will say that I really like about it, I just pulled it up. He is another special teams ace. He was on special teams before he ever got on the field as a corner. He had 136 reps at special teams in 2022, and that's across all positions. That's 27 at kickoff return, 43 at kickoff, 46 at punt return, 13 at punt return. He had 224 in 2023, and he still had 79 last year. So it's another guy that's had special teams value. He's going to give you special teams value, and so that's where he's going to come on the field. But he is going to get drafted higher than where I have him as cornerback 10 because of his age. I can acknowledge that, and I can say that. And it's just a matter if he develops into some of those traits. But lengthwise, size-wise, playing press man, playing all those things that you want, then you definitely want Azareye'h Thomas to be on your team and let your staff develop him.
That's another Bills option in my mind. Maybe earlier, Rams as well, Packers as well. It's a name that I've seen thrown around in the late half of the first round just because you could get a 5th year on a 20-year-old at the cornerback position who's got really good traits. I think if your DB coach is confident in a guy like that, it's a good player to pull the trigger on.
I totally agree.
We go to Watts. Your
go to
DB
Watts.
11.
You can call
Your
me a
DB
hater
11.
again. You can
No,
call me
I'm
a
not
hater
going to call
again.
you a hater on this one. Because Watts was tough to place for me just in and around these corners that I have him slotted ahead of. But he's my DB7, your DB11, our safety 3. Xavier Watts is the Notre Dame safety, 23 years old, a 4-year starter, and he had 6 interceptions this year, 7 interceptions the year before. So Xavier Watts is a ball hawking player at the safety position. And I think he's got good movement skills, not great movement skills. I think he's an adequate athlete, not a great athlete. But he does make up for it by being a smart player who takes very good angles and tackles well. So while he might not be the fastest player on the field, he's going to take good angles to meet the runners at the right spot, as opposed to a player that isn't fast and doesn't take the right angles and doesn't make any tackles. Xavier Watts is going to be in the right place at the right time. And I think I talked about that on our last episode. But that's not luck, in my opinion. If you are consistently in the right place at the right time, a la 13 receptions in the last 2 seasons, there is something to be said for that. And Xavier Watts was a defensive leader for this Notre Dame defense that almost went all the way, posted an 89.5 coverage grade this past year, and somebody that I'd be very comfortable taking in the second round, maybe the early third round at the safety position. Perhaps not the same upside as a Kevin Winston Jr., but I think Xavier Watts is a very high floor player at the safety position. And that's why I have him over the likes of Savon Ravel, Darian Porter, and Azarie Thomas, all guys that I see needing development.
He's steady Eddie for sure. This is a guy that you're drafting. I see him going in the second round. I take positional value just a little bit more because I feel like there's going to be more corners going off the board than safeties. But I agree with everything that you said in your evaluation. 5'11" and 6'8", 224 pounds. I love how he's a ball hawk. 7 interceptions in 2023, 6 in 2024. He's had 27 PBUs in the last 2 years. I think that he's an elite ball hawking safety wherever you put him there. Route anticipation. One thing that I've came to learn and coach at the linebacker spot, I think it's true for safeties, is the sign of a good linebacker or safety in pass coverage is you're there when the ball's there. That's consistently the case with him. He breaks on routes. He knows when it's coming. He arrives when the ball arrives. He doesn't arrive early to get PIs. He doesn't arrive late. He gets there when the ball gets there, and he's a good tackler. I think he's very good in the run pass read. I also think he plays faster than his 4.58 speed. He flies around the field. Flies around, high IQ, very smart, voted a team captain for 2 years, which is a huge thing at Notre Dame, especially with, the coach that they have there. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? Marcus Freeman. I freaking love Marcus Freeman. He's one of my favorite coaches in college. He's a stud.
Love him so much you forgot his name.
Yeah, that's bad. But no, I really like him. I think that he's turned that program around since, Brian Kelly left. But anyways, he does have a little bit of a missed tackle problem. 12.6% missed tackle rate. Needs to get that up or down a little bit to be a true elite safety. I think he could struggle against playing versus twitchy wide receivers, especially in the slot guys. They can get in and out of their breaks. They're going to out athlete him. And then I think he is a bit stiff when he does have to redirect, which is why I don't think he can, play against those receivers. But no, steady Eddie, going to be a good guy that you can put anywhere as a safety, and he's going to be, able to make plays on the ball, going to be a ball hawk there. Positional value for me came a little bit more into play, and that's why he's down at DB11. But he's still safety three for me. Still maybe safety 3.
Maybe not that superstar potential, but I think he's got instant starter ability.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Trey Amos next.
Trying to think. Is that the only one?
That's the only one.
Only one. Okay.
Before maybe you drop. No, I think we got one more, and then we'll see how you arrange the slides. That's up to you over there in the control room.
Trey Amos. You go.
So Trey Amos, he is my DB6, your DB7. He's the corner out of Ole Miss, made stops at Louisiana Lafayette for 3 years, 1 year at Alabama, and then this final year at Ole Miss, where he really found his stride, posting an 85.6 coverage grade, an 81 run defense grade, and a 76.4 tackling grade. All good and notable numbers for Trey Amos. I think he's a really good fluid mover. He's got great body positioning, even through contact. I think he works fluidly in zone and man coverage, and he knows how to use his hands legally which is something that I kind of alluded to talking about Azareye'h Thomas. Not that Thomas has a problem doing that, something I wanted to see him develop more on. And now listen, Amos is 23. He's just turned 23, and Thomas is about to turn 21. So they're not 3 years apart, more like 2.5. But that experience is going to help him, and it depends on your flavor. Like, do you want the guy that's ready to go right now, or do you want the guy that maybe you have to develop a little bit, but he's a little bit younger? I have Amos higher just because if what I see is what I get, I'm totally fine with that. I like his movement profile, his athletic profile, and his size profile. I think put that together, you have a really good corner. I have a second round grade on Amos. But listen, I think this is a potential instant starter, regardless of the age. And I think one thing that I noticed that I was really impressed with is his hip fluidity. I don't think he loses very many players in his blind spot, and he flips his hips very well if he senses a player has gotten behind him and perhaps beat him. He flips to match and recover. I think he is a very good tactical corner, and another guy that, could go in the back half of round one, because there's 3 corners that we'll get to that are first round locks, potentially top 15 locks. And then you still got to fill out the rest of those 32 picks. So I do think that there will be a 4th, maybe a 5th corner that goes. Trey Amos could be one of those guys.
And I really like Trey Amos too. I mean, he's right on my list with you. You have him at corner what?
Corner 4.
Okay, so I have him at corner 5. We're going to see him very similar, and it's just a matter of 1 or 2 guys. But 16 PBUs on the year, 3 interceptions, the play strength, the size, the length, the speed, it's all there. He smothers slants and short routes because of how physical he is through the catch point. He doesn't waste his length. Some guys don't know how to use their length or get their hand on balls. That's not him. He knows how to play through contact, get to the wide receiver's hands. He times the ball well in the air to go up and get it. Good effort in the run game, gets hands-on in press coverage and the physical. He had a force incompletion percentage above 20% in each of the past 3 years. So, that's the playing through the hands of the receiver, being physical, forcing incompletions, things like that. Really like that. And I agree with you. I think that the experience, especially at the 2 places he's been, Alabama and Ole Miss in the SEC, only is going to help him. More experience at this position is great. I think his long speed is a little iffy. He did run a 4.43. I think that could be one thing there.
Yeah,
and
I don't know if he plays 4.43.
Yeah, that I feel like I was shocked seeing him there. I was like, oh, that's a really good time based off of what I actually saw him
I was going to say, I think that's kind of the one thing that holds him back from being a first-round graded corner for me is I just don't see exceptional speed. And there's a corner that we both have really high that people doubt his exceptional speed. And quite frankly, I think that's not a great conversation, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But I do wish, listen, if Amos had more of an impressive speed profile, and maybe you don't get that because he's a little bit of a bigger player. But if he was a more explosive athlete, I think you're talking about a really special corner. But listen, just because he's not a special corner doesn't mean I don't think he can be a day 1 starter for a team. And I'm really liking him at corner 4. I think his watch, when I watched Trey Amos, was the best watch above expectation for me in this cycle.
Yeah, I really liked him too, and that came around on him. We both have him pretty high. If it was a corner episode, he'd be even higher. So
yeah.
Top 5. We have graphics for these top 5s. So again, if you want to see them, hop over here. Drum roll. You know how I ordered them. Actually, you don't.
No,
it's your boy. It's your boy. We'll start with him, and you can take it away. He is your DB5, my DB6, but both of our safety 2s. We're going to see him very similarly. I think a lot of people are, and some people are going to say this is too low for him because there's a lot of people putting him above Malachi Starks. We'll have that conversation once we get there, but take it away.
Two very different players, Malachi Starks and Nick Emanwari, but I do prefer Starks for now because I think Emanwari's best football is still ahead of him, but I would have liked to see more of what he is projected at in college on tape before I go ahead and make him my safety 1. I really like him as a communicator before the snap. He's a leader on the field. He's a long strider. He reacts really well to the quarterback's eyes, especially from the strong safety spot. Get this guy closer to the football, and he will excel. He's got great reactivity. He's a violent tackler, bullied Luther Burden a couple times in that Missouri game. Brings the boom to the point of contact, whether he's meeting a block or making a tackle. Plays in a variety of alignments. That positionless football box. That is completely checked with Nicky Manwari. And that is something that I really look for when evaluating safeties. Can you make me more versatile? He absolutely can.
Yeah.
He's got the man coverage skills to cover a tight end and the movement skills to play deep. I'm not saying he's going to play deep consistently, but if you need him to play free safety on a couple of snaps a game, he can absolutely get that done for you. I think he needs to be better at taking consistent and consistently good angles as a tackler. I think he can come in too hot at times. But that's something you're going to get when you have a player that knows he can absolutely knock the socks off of a ball carrier. So if you get Nicky Manwari to hone that in a little bit, I think you're looking at a really good player. And then with the bigger frame, I think it makes it harder for him to come to balance at the tackling point. So sometimes he's going to overrun a ball carrier. And listen, that's just something that's going to happen with a bigger prospect. So how you choose to take that into account is kind of based on the evaluator. But that does ding him a couple points for me, and that's kind of why I have Starks higher than him. But the ceiling with this guy is absurd. The athletic profile is quite literally second to none. I'll pull that up really quickly just to read through some of those. But he had a 99th percentile broad jump, 98th percentile vertical, 93rd percentile 10-yard split, 91st percentile 40, which is a 4.38. Unbelievable height, weight for the position, wingspan, arm length. And then he threw up 20 reps on the bench press, which is pretty sweet. Big time player. And I can see why people have him at safety 1. I just need my safeties to come to balance and be more consistent tacklers than he is. Not saying that when he gets hands-on, he misses tackles. It's about getting hands-on more consistently for Manwari. Outside of that, though, really good player, right on the border, quite literally to the decimal point of a first and second round grade for me. So I guess that's up to my discretion, but really good season this past year. Ball production as well. And my final note on him is when he makes the turnover-worthy plays, he does convert a lot of them. He doesn't drop very many interceptions. But when he makes the interception, you got to play some defense if you're on offense because he's going to go score that thing.
I don't know if you can see a ceiling for this guy. That's how high it is.
You cannot. The ceiling is this is absurd to say, but in a draft class like this one, I think the ceiling is being the best player in it.
Yeah, you could legitimately say that because, he's 20 years old. You haven't seen his best football yet. He was on Feldman's freak list. He's a guy that's 6'3", 220, and he ran a 4.38. He jumped 43 inches. He had an 11'6" broad. Same thing with Abdul Carter. The first thing I wrote down is he is a tier 1 NFL athlete. In a class of the best athletes in the world, he is going to be tier 1 in the league, no matter how good he turns out to be as a football player. He's a tier 1 NFL athlete. His size and speed are best of the best. It's hard to find anyone better than him. I would trust him guarding both running backs and tight ends. The thing that you said that we hinted at with Kevin Winston, better he is, the closer to the ball. Put him closer to the ball, 5, 6, 7, 8 yards away. Put him on tight ends, put him in the box, fitting a gap. That's what he wants to do. He's great in run defense, whether it's in the box or, like you said, flying up and running the alley. Violent tackler, physical, which is a little bit of his downfall too, but you hone that in a little bit, have him break down a little bit more, realize how good he actually is. That's probably not that big of a problem. And you can tell me, did you like how South Carolina used him?
So I think based on their depth chart, yes, they used him how they had to use him. But I think if South Carolina had better depth at the safety position, they could have gotten a little more creative and put their safety 2 and safety 3 out there and just let him roam. Because DQ Smith, the guy they have next to him, is a pretty good safety, but not good enough to just like consistently be like, hey, you're on your own with our safety 3, and we're going to let Nick do his thing. So I wish that was more of a possibility for them, but that's kind of what I mean is I wish we got to see his NFL usage on tape more because there is a lot of him playing deep safety, and that's not to say he can't, but that's just not going to be his role.
No, and that's why I felt like I didn't like him as much as I know he's going to be good in the NFL is because I think he was a little stiff. He lacked anticipation in the post, getting, moved by quarterback's eyes was not his thing, but He also makes plays on the ball when he's playing underneath coverage. If quarterbacks make bad throws, he's going up to get it. So, yeah, I feel like his usage was just a little bit weird for me. You can see the athleticism. You can see the ceiling jump out on tape. That's why he's defensive back 6 for me, safety 2 here. Like, there is no argument in the world that someone can make against me that saying he can't be the number one, defensive back in this class, maybe even the number one player because of that ceiling and because of his age and how I agree. I don't think the best football's been played ahead of him. So I see it. It is your guy. I thought you were going to have him at number 1.
No, I thought about it. One more thing I was going to say on him is I think where I fall in love with the prospect like this is, I don't know if because the way we watch film is a little different because you get blessed with PFF Ultimate, but what this guy does after interceptions, I've literally never seen before in evaluating safeties.
Yeah.
Like when he catches, like the one against LSU that gets called back. Never mind. The one that gets called back against LSU, whatever, that cost South Carolina the football game, and me one of the best days ever. Like what he does to catch that ball on his back foot on the goal line and then just go. And then against Oklahoma, playing center field, catching a ball and just flying to the end zone. These are 50-plus yard returns that he's housing. And I think that, maybe he's not going to have 4 interceptions every single year in the NFL, but if he can get 2 every year and does what he does after the catch, which how many defensive players do you talk about their ability after the catch? Not many.
Not a lot, yeah.
But that's just a testament to how special he is in that regard.
I totally agree. Let's keep this rolling. We're going to go to the Texas corner, the Thorpe Award winner, right? Thorpe Award, the
Thorpe
best
Award
corner.
Winner.
Max's DB4, my DB5, your cornerback 3, and my cornerback 4. So if you guys are keeping up, the next slide we'll pull up will be a little bit different than some. But we'll start here with Jahdae Barron. Obviously, great player. I mean, great season for Texas. Huge part of that defense. 5'10" and 3/4, 194 pounds. He ran a 4.39, 5 interceptions this year, 16 PBUs. I just think this guy reads and reacts super quickly. He's a high football IQ guy. Closing speed is best of the best when he sees the ball thrown and how he's going to get there. He is getting to the ball very quickly in and out of his breaks. He gets his hands on balls. He turns his head. He makes plays with it in the air, whether it's on the receiver or, he's going up to get it. He shows up in the run. He can make offensive line miss. He's savvy when he's doing that. I believe he's also a good blitzer. This is also another interesting stat. He had 3 non-career offensive touchdowns, a blocked punt, a fumble return, and an interception return. So a versatile guy that just has a knack for the football. He's seen time at corner, safety, nickel, and dime. He played primarily inside as an underclassman, but then he moved outside in 2024, which is where he took 69% of his snaps. And then 30% of them came at, the other spots. He led the SEC in both interceptions and PBUs. My question for you, do you think he's an outside corner?
No.
Okay, good. Because I have him as a slot corner.
Outlier with arm length. I think he can give you snaps at outside corner. Maybe you develop him to be an outside corner long-term, but out of the gates, I want him inside because I don't want him to completely be taken advantage of. Because listen, there are a couple outliers I'm willing to buy in on this draft cycle. But arm length on corners, and especially when you're sub 30, which I think he is, I have a hard time seeing that playing well on the outside consistently. He can give you snaps there. If somebody goes down, send him out there. But I think his role is more positionless and less of a predominant station on the outside.
Yeah, and this is a guy that I was talking about who was I bringing up? That was a zone core. Oh, Jacob Parrish and stuff like. I think that it's going to be. Jahdae Barron is going to have a great opportunity to play in a zone corner role, where some people might not, draft him as a man cover guy. So that's where we'll see. I think that he is not very limited because he has the movement skills to play man. He's going to be best in a zone corner scheme and, driving down on balls, making plays, having his eyes in the backfield. That's where I see him being there. Yeah,
I think you touched on a lot of it. I think he's got a really quick reaction time. And then the biggest trait for me, of course, is the experience all over the back 7. The guy plays everywhere. And so I think, when you have a guy that just got to outside corner, it's a little bit hard to project because maybe if we had 3 years of tape on him at outside corner with this kind of success, we'd be like, okay, this is an outlier, but he's going to be good. But he had the ball production this year, 5 interceptions. That's huge. And kind of like I touched on earlier, I think he can play outside corner, right? We've seen outliers work at outside corner, Trent McDuffie, but he wasn't thought of exclusively as an outside corner until the Chiefs let him start playing there, continue playing there. He found success, and they're like, okay, you're an outside corner. I think it's going to be a little bit of a maturation process with him kind of adapting to playing outside corner at the NFL level. And then one thing I just wish we had for Jahdae Barron was time, right? He's a 23-year-old prospect, but I think if we were talking about a 21-year-old, this is somebody that at least I would have skyrocketed up on my board. And not that those 2 years are everything, but just like we kind of had 2 good years of Jahdae Barron in college this year and the year before. And while I don't want to diss on his 2022, it just didn't have the production that we've seen this year. So Barron, a really exciting player. I may be lower on him than most. You may as well be. And I think, listen, it's possible he goes 6 overall to the Raiders. That's a scheme or a fit we're seeing a lot of. But Barron makes you more positionless. Yes, I do love that. I don't necessarily love it for corners as much as I do for safeties, because corner, I want you to be able to play on the outside, and I don't want to draft a nickel corner super high. I don't think he's just a nickel corner, but I do think it's possible when we look back on this in 5 years that Jahdae Barron is completely a nickel corner.
Yeah, and I agree with you. If you're taking, it's kind of the same thing with like Will Campbell if he bumps into guard. Like if you're taking him at 4, 5, 6, 7, is that worth it to take a guard? Really good football player, is the value worth it and things like that. So that's
completely
where Jahdae
agree.
Barron
That's
stands.
A great comparison.
So let's get to it. We've played it off enough. I have Savone Ravel as my corner 3, defensive back 4. You're the big hater right here. I mean, look at his stats. You're even better than I am. He only had 8 tackles and 2 picks on the year. What a bum. What a bum. So
hey, two picks ain't bad. That's better than I think somebody else that we have coming up.
Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry. This is a guy that, and if you guys have been following the show for a while, I'm high on Josh Simmons too. I believe that Savone Ravel is the same exact argument there. If this guy plays all year, he's a top 15 player, top 20 for sure, maybe top 15. His size and speed are elite. His length is also elite. His wingspan is, or his arm length is 32 and 5/8. His wingspan is 80 inches. I think he is very comfortable playing press man, which is what I love as a defensive guy. If you can play man coverage, it opens up so much more.
Be physical. Be physical for sure.
And he gets his hands on. He disrupts the receivers at the line of scrimmage, but he doesn't create penalties. He's another guy that I wrote down. Same with who was it? Where I got to find it now. Now I'm drawing a blank. Maybe it was Azaria Thomas. It was Azaria Thomas. He uses the sidelines. If guys are going to outside release, he's just going to widen you with them, and he's going to get you out of bounds eventually to where you can't make a play on the ball. Elite recovery speed. He doesn't know how fast he is. We don't know how fast he is because we didn't see it, but there's some times where he freaking hawks dudes from behind, or his recovery speed, and you're like, that is not normal. That is not what a normal dude for your size should be doing. So he's a playmaker. I think he showed good tackling. He wraps and takes his shots. His ability to turn and run with the receivers, our deep routes. I think he is a little bit thin. His build is skinnier. He's 190 pounds, but he looks like a rail. The ACL injury is, that's going to be the concern there.
Right.
I also think this is another guy that could have made more plays, missed interceptions, missed opportunities for Savone Ravel. And this is in 2023. This isn't even this year. This is going back to 2023. Missed opportunities for him. He left so much production on the field.
There's some in 2024 too.
Yeah, before he got hurt with the ACL.
Yeah, he played 3 games. And then
he gets upright in his back pedal, which I think I don't know if it's a sign of being lazy, or maybe he relies on his speed too much. He's like, if this guy runs past me, I'll catch him.
Relying on his athleticism, where he just knows he's athletic enough to just make up for it and doesn't necessarily have the technique to do it, but he'll learn that.
And he's not going to be able to do that, so he has to reel that in. The other big concern I have with him, he's 24, coming off an ACL injury as a rookie. That's going to be the question mark of how high does he get drafted for the NFL. If he's 24, has the year that I think he could have had, and he's not coming off an ACL, that's where I say he's the top 15, 20 player for me. Right now, it's a little bit concerning. And again, this is a balance of, hey, we're drafting, this board is for, what we like, but for an invisible NFL team, we're going there. But
Right.
it's also, hey, in 3 years, who do we think could be the best? Because I think it's really hard to grade drafts the day after it happens. Okay, you could say that guy's really good.
It's impossible, actually.
It is, because what happens 3 years down the road is what matters. Do these guys get to second contracts? Were they productive? Do they help you get to the playoffs if you're a rebuilding team? And that's where I think Savon Ravel could getting healthy and things like that. So I'm high on him. I really do like his potential. I think that he is a guy it sucks he got hurt, because I was really excited to see he had a pick 6 early in the season this year. And he's just a fun player to watch with how athletic he is and the size.
The injury was devastating, because when you're talking about a 24-year-old player who still needs some development, like we talked about with Darian Porter, it's just hard now that he's also coming off an injury. We didn't get to see him test, and I don't need to see him test to prove anything. I just want to see him test. I know he's an incredible athlete. He played 3 good games, but really good games before tearing his ACL, which almost makes it harder to project where he goes, because like you mentioned, if he was going to continue on that pace, he's probably a shoe-in for either corner 3 or corner 4 consensusly. And for you, he was corner 3 anyways. So good on you for sticking to your guns and doing that. He's a big physical corner, comfortable in man coverage. I think his coolest trait is he hustles to every play effortlessly. If he's playing corner on the left side and there's a run to the right, he's just going to go jog over there and make sure that guy doesn't break loose. And if he does, he's going to be there. Savon Ravel plays every single play like it could be a touchdown, and I think that's an incredible trait. He hustles to the ball no matter where the football is. If the guy hasn't been brought down yet, he's going to go try to make an effort to be there. I think that's the type of leadership mentality he brings to the table, and I really like that, especially out of a corner that's going to lead by example. He's going to be a physical player. So I think those 2 traits are something that I look for in every single corner I evaluate, and he's got that going for him. Where I want to see him improve is I think he moves like an athlete sometimes, like I kind of jumped in and mentioned earlier, and in a way that I don't necessarily love, because in spots where you should be more technical, like a drop back off of man coverage, kind of sitting, waiting for a break, keeping your eyes on the corner, he's kind of just jogging backwards is what it looks like. Yeah. And I think sometimes that hurts his ability to click and close, where curl routes, comebacks, quick breakers can beat him. But I think that's something he'll learn over time. It's just a matter of how much faith you have in a 24-year-old coming off of an ACL injury to grasp that, come back healthy, and then excel. And then the last thing I'll say is he's a willing tackler. Doesn't always make the best plays at the tackle point, but this guy's huge. He's a super willing tackler. He's going to bring his shoulder pads into every single tackle. So that's about all you could ask for. I'm not asking for my corners to be tackling gurus, but yeah, I think he's a good enough tackler. I do have one question for you on Savon Ravel. Do you think that there is a world where he's not a full-time safety, but he gets snaps over there and kind of plays in the box a little bit? Because to me, he kind of fits the mold of another one of those players that's better the closer you get him to the football.
I could see it. I could see a team putting him, because I do think he is pretty good in zone coverage too. And with the traits and stuff, he can get to the ball. You can put him, he's a guy, and he's good in press coverage, but if you're concerned about, hey, the development, the ACL and stuff, let's make it easy on him. Older prospect, let's just take advantage of his athleticism. I could see a team doing that. Yes. I don't think I would do it, because I think that even if he doesn't develop, he's still a really good corner. He's not cornerback 3 where I have him if he doesn't get any better and stuff, but the potential of him at corner is elite. It's up there. Yeah. It's sky high. So, and I will acknowledge he's not going to get drafted like cornerback 3 or DB4. I acknowledge that someone might take a chance on him in the late first. I would still be surprised if they do that. I think he's a 2nd round guy right now because of the injury and not seeing the testing and stuff. So I acknowledge that he's probably not going to get drafted like cornerback 3 that I have on here, but
what's the point in ranking them based on how you think they're going to get drafted?
That's boring.
Yeah.
So, but we have the same top three, and it's probably the same top three that a lot of people have. There's a little variation in some people, but we'll fly through these guys. Keep it simple. Malachi Starks out of Georgia, the safety. He is both of our DB3, safety one. This is a guy that I feel like is getting prospect fatigued because people have heard about him so much. He's a 3-year starter for a Georgia defense that was one of the best in college football over the past couple of years. He's super versatile. He's a positionless safety in the box, deep in the slot. He can do anything. Really good range to cover the field. Good fluid athlete, smooth hips, good trigger on throws. He reacts quickly, whether it's in the run or the pass. Really good tackler in the run, too. He comes up, makes plays. He can fit gaps in the run. Long wingspan, great ball skills, gets his hand on the balls. And then he ran a 4.5 40, but this guy was a 10.5 500-meter guy. So I think his long speed's there. I don't think he necessarily needs it. He needs to be quick and stuff for the position he has. But I really believe that this guy has prospect fatigue. People are starting to knock him a little bit more and, put Imawari ahead of him, which I can see why they're doing it. But I think this guy's a top 10 talent. Maybe won't get drafted there because safety position might not be the most valuable, but talent wise and the brand of football he's played the last 3 years has been up there.
I'm glad we see eye to eye on this one. I think, really good football player. You don't need to say too much about him. The guy is in the right place at the right time, gives you some versatility on the defensive side of the ball, willing run defender, doesn't miss tackles. And I think the reason he kind of dropped this year was because you look at the 7 PBUs and 3 interceptions from last year and 2 PBUs and 1 interception this year. They're just not throwing the ball in his direction, guys. That's how that works. So, still a really productive player. He never in his career has had a missed tackle percentage over 8%, which is a really low number. Even though 8% was this past year, 8% is a good number. And Malachi Stark's a really solid player, leader of that Georgia defense, and easy safety one not easy safety one, but he's safety one for me. DB3.
Comfortably. Yep. Will Johnson, go ahead and take us away. Both of our cornerback and DB2s. This is a great player also.
Really good football player, man. Will Johnson was one of the rewatches that I went into more intently because of his injury this past year. That really sidelined him for a decent amount of the season. And I also think hindered some of his play. But when you zoom out and take a look at Will Johnson, I think at the start of my watch, I really liked him. The more I watched, I saw things I didn't like. And then the more I watched after that, I was like, no, this guy's a really, really good football player. I think he's mostly a zone corner. He gets from point A to point B really efficiently. He's got an excellent feel for zone and the space around him. He's got fluid hips. Back pedal to his downhill trigger is textbook. He's comfortable in press. I'm not going to make him live in press, but he's comfortable if you want to go ask him to do that. His eyes are always following the football. He's always going to be in the right place at the right time, kind of like what we talked about with Xavier Watts. I actually think Johnson kind of is the Xavier Watts of the corner class, if you're willing to go there. He's absolutely capable of playing man, even though I'd rather have him as zone. Good balance, and he's not slow. That play against Ryan Wingo needs to be more viral than it is. That chase down tackle he has against Texas. Everybody wants him to run a 40. I don't think he's going to cruise in the 40, but this guy does not have long speed problems. He doesn't have elite long speed. His long speed is good enough. And I think against the run, this isn't necessarily a knock, but I think he clearly prefers playing that last line of defense role against the run as opposed to somebody like Azareye'h Thomas that's going to go fly in there and try to make a play. And he's good at playing that role, so I don't mind it, but I wish he would throw his nose in there a little more often in the run. But really good player in my corner too, and don't mind it if you're got him at corner 1.
Yeah, I mean, 3 interceptions in 6 games this year. Great movement skills, change the directions for his size. Super good. He can match up with bigger receivers. He's 6'1" plus 194. Good quick feet, mirrors the receivers off the line of scrimmage very well. One concern that I had for him, he only played 14.8% of his coverage snaps in man-to-man in 2024. I mean, Michigan system, Wink Martindale did not want to do that. Wink Martindale. I mean, he's been in Baltimore and stuff. Yeah. And I feel like he's going to be a man-to-man corner in the NFL. He has all the traits you want to. Yeah, it might be a little bit scary. Not the twitchiest, not the fastest, but great IQ. He anticipates the ball. He has 3 career pick sixes. He passes off and picks off routes in zone, not affected by physicality. So I think he's going to trend to be like, I think he can do both at a high level. He's a complete corner, but I would play him in more man coverage than what Michigan did. And that's scheme specific. But I would not shy away from that saying, oh, he didn't play man in college. No, he can play man in the NFL. That was an outlier.
There are people in mock drafts that are like, well, I don't know if you mock Will Johnson here because they're predominantly a man team. And I'm like, oh, please turn on the tape, man. Throw on his man coverage snaps if you want. They're all good.
Yeah, they just didn't do it.
They just didn't do it as much. So Will Johnson will have rookie mini camp, training camp, get acclimated to that. And listen, if you got a depth corner that you like better in man, fine, make the switch for a couple snaps. But this guy is a stud. Stop overlooking him. Another prospect fatigue guy. And now we're going to somebody that has no prospect fatigue.
Everyone hates this guy. No, just kidding. The Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, we talked about him at receiver. He was my receiver 2, your receiver 1. He's both of our corner ones, DB 1. Yeah. He doesn't need much explanation, right? I mean, he had the 7th highest coverage grade on PFF. That's all, with the 8th highest receiving grade too. He had 7 PBUs, 4 interceptions. He was the Heisman Trophy winner. I think he's got good length for the corner position. Obviously, he's a great athlete. His feet, his change of directions, those are elite. His ball skills on both the offense and defensive side of the ball, how he high points it, how he's able to track it, the acrobatic catches he makes out of the air. He's a willing tackler. I think he's very smart. He knows the wide receiver position. He understands setting up routes, leverage, things like that, which, comes with him playing the receiver position. But I do think he's, great there. I think he baits quarterbacks into throws in zones. He can show one thing and quickly react to the other one. His speed, obviously the recovery speed is there. He's good in press man. He had 208 snaps there. So that's probably what he's going to play mostly of in the NFL. But I mean, even if you're a zone team, you're taking this guy. He's an elite prospect that can do both things. I do think his foot speed can lack. He does have longer legs, so he's not, the quickest guy. Does take a little bit to get up. He's a little bit of a long strider compared to what people think. Like, he's so quick, but he's not like, road runner quick where he has these, 15 steps in 10 yards. He can eat up ground too.
Second round pick.
Yeah. Second, let him fall to the Patriots at 38.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say about him, I think that he can get better as a corner because I think he was relying on being an athlete. His technique can get cleaner as a corner. His punches can get a little bit cleaner. He is right now is just such an elite athlete and so good at both things that he does that he's just out there. And that's not a knock on him. That's just saying, like, I think he can clean up some of his technical issues and be an even better corner than what we saw at Colorado.
I don't disagree. I think his background as a wide receiver blended with his athleticism gives him a really good foundation to rely on, and this guy's only going to get better from there. I texted you earlier today. This guy's got so much passion, and he plays every game like it's his last. He cares about the team that he's playing for. There's a wheel route against UCF where RJ Harvey catches one out of the backfield, and Travis Hunter's working towards the middle of the field, and Harvey catches it going towards the opposite sideline. And there's a lot of players that would just be like, damn. And Hunter flips his hips and just tracks him all the way down. He gets to him at the goal line, doesn't end up making the tackle, but it's just something, those are the types of plays you circle immediately. And you're just like, this guy, he cares. There's another play in that UCF game. His teammate makes an interception on a goal line fade and Travis Hunter goes crazy. This is just the type of attitude you want to see out of a defensive player. Playing defense is hard in the NFL. He's got the mental makeup to do it, and I think he should be a Cleveland Brown.
No, he should be a New England Patriot.
He should be a Baltimore Raven.
No, I mean, you can't say enough about him. He's going to be, and he's going to play both ways. He's going to do receiver and corner, and he's going to be very good at it. For how long? That's the question. Can his body hold up? How is it going to hold up? What does it feel like now? Is going to be the question. But
you know what that is? That's a later problem.
That's something that we say, we'll figure it out. Yeah. Maybe we'll give him practices off or, this or that. Like, you'll figure it out. You take the guy. So, but let's go ahead and read our top 12 again. You can go ahead and start and then I'll finish.
So at 12, I had Jacob Parrish, the corner out of Kansas State. 11, I had Kevin Winston Jr., safety out of Penn State. 10, I had Savon Ravel, the corner out of East Carolina. At 9, I had Darian Porter, the corner out of Iowa State. At 8, I had Azareye'h Thomas, the corner out of Florida State. At 7, I had Xavier Watts, the safety out of Notre Dame. At 6, I had Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss. At 5, I had Nicky Manwari, the safety out of South Carolina. At 4, I had Jade Barron, the corner out of Texas. At 3, I had Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. 2 is Will Johnson, corner out of Michigan. And number 1 is Travis Hunter, the alien out of Colorado.
12 for me was Benjamin Morrison, the corner out of Notre Dame. 11 was Xavier Watts, the safety out of Notre Dame. 10 is Azaria Thomas, the corner out of Florida State. 9 is Darian Porter, the corner out of Iowa State. Maxwell Hairston at 7 for me, the corner from, oh wait, no, is that 7?
8.
8. I'm off on my sheet now. So anyways, Hairston at 8 for me from Kentucky. Trey Amos at 7 from Ole Miss. Nick Imawari, the safety alien, another guy at 6 for me. Jade Barron, the corner from Texas, the Thorpe winner at 5. Savone Revel Jr. from East Carolina at 4. Malachi Starks at 3, the safety out of Georgia. Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan at 2. And Travis Hunter, the corner receiver, quarterback, punt returner, whatever you want him to play at number 1.
You tried to move Ravel up again.
I'm a mess right now.
You got anything else before we wrap this big boy up?
No, that was a fun one. Deep
Yeah.
position there, and helps when you're combining safeties and stuff. I feel like top 10 corners. We would have obviously been able to talk about top 10 and stuff, but throwing in safeties made it a little bit more interesting and talk about a little bit more of those guys.
I mean, we talked about my corner 1 through 12, and we talked about my safeties 1 through 5. So if you guys could put that together, we covered a lot of names in this one for you guys. Let us know who you guys like at corner 1. I'm really curious to see how a majority of people see it. Is it Will Johnson? Is it Travis Hunter? And just a really exciting position group. So if you don't have anything before we go wrap this up, we're about to go record the interior defensive line episode. So we'll have that one coming out shortly. So stay tuned for that if you're listening to this guy before that one drops. But for Jace Campbell over at Pat's Drive, I'm Max Shostak over at the Draft Geek. We will see you guys next time.